27th?
Yes.
Okay, it is Tuesday, February 27th. CRC meeting commences at 5:01. We'll start by taking roll call.
Alex Robinette.
Brian Ryder.
Jay Van Bavel.
Dave Bench. All right, we'll move right to, if there's any public comments? No, hearing none. We'll move right to the consent agenda. I trust that everybody here has had a chance to look over our meeting notes from last time. Good. I have one correction I think I'd like to, it says there that I am part of the was nominated and cleared as part of the subcommittee for lighting. That was kind of an as-needed basis. I wouldn't say that I haven't participated in anything, nor have I been asked to. I just said that if they needed help, I'd jump in.
I can fix that.
So
Okay.
is it Tom, Duke?
It was just Tom and Duke,
Tom, Duke, okay.
yeah. So I think, unless you think we need a third, I will do it, you know. So I put myself out there in case they needed me.
Well, if you need a third, then I'm willing to
Are you?
take your spot, yes.
That's great, Jay, thanks.
Because, you know, we're almost done with trees, right?
Oh, I love your positivity.
Do we wanna do that officially, like, put Jay in instead of you and leave the minutes as they are from the last meeting?
That's fine.
Yes,
We can do that after this month, okay?
that would be lovely, thank you.
Can we do that during the tree item? That might be,
Okay,
listed.
all right,
That would be a good time to do it.
okay. Now recognizing too that Jay is on his way up for a couple of weeks, right?
3 weeks.
3 weeks, yeah. All right, we're gonna need to talk about next meeting dates later on in the meeting today.
Make a motion to
Okay,
approve
so,
the minutes.
does that mean that we do not approve these minutes, or that we should
Approve
approve
them
them?
as modified.
Approve them with,
And then we can change Jay to replace Dave in this meeting.
okay,
With he wants a slight modification to say he was only as needed
As needed.
in those.
but,
Maybe-
you know, since we're gonna change that, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
Your choice, how you want.
That's cool, all right, so can I get a motion?
Which way did we decide to go?
Let's
As is.
approve them.
We're gonna approve the minutes?
And then we'll put somebody else in the spot later on in the meeting.
All right.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes as presented.
I second.
Okay, any other discussion? We got a motion, all right. All in favor, approving? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes carried. Consent agenda approved, thank you. Moving on to regular agenda item number 3, discussion and possible action on the tree subcommittee progress report. I know that you folks have been working hard on this, and I saw what Jay had sent for the packet. You want to kick us off?
Yeah, so we can just pick up where we left off, which was item 14 on the back of this page. And then there's a couple things up above that I tried to modify based on what was approved or just discussed last time. But let's start with 14, which is new ground. We're talking about either increasing the maximum number of trees that need to be replaced to a higher number than 7, which it is currently. It's 7 is the maximum number of trees that needs to be replaced, no matter what the size of the lot or how many trees were removed. Or to just remove that limitation altogether. So if you take off, if you need to replace 15 trees, then you have to replace 15 trees.
Jay, given the fact that the houses that are being built are substantially different and higher floor area ratio than the houses that have existed in Rolling Wood, are there places on the lots, are there places, period, for the new trees to go? Where are the new trees gonna go?
Well, we are making some modifications on how many trees you have to replace down the list here. So that might decrease the number of trees that you have to replace. instead of 3
I'm
trees
not-
for every
I'm not
one.
against
Yeah.
having to replace lots of trees.
Mhm.
I'm not arguing against replacing trees, I'm saying, where are we gonna put them? Given the fact that the new houses seem to be being built basically setback line to setback line, I guess that in the setback areas is one place. It may be the only place on the lot that we can have new trees.
Well, you have your front yard and your backyard,
Yeah,
and I think we're trying to subtly discourage removing every single tree that can possibly be removed, so you can make your footprint as absolutely as large as possible.
and I'm all for that. I'm with you.
And we, so we are decreasing, in the number of trees that possibly would need to be replaced.
You know, it's
Um,
interesting, there's a project that we were discussing that does consume most of the buildable area.
Yeah,
And there were some very mature trees that were still left in the setbacks that have since died. So they should have space to
Some-
replace their trees.
sometimes
But
that happens because of the root zone being, compacted, and sometimes it happens.
they were, basically ignored. The lot sat empty for a long time. So that's one of the things that I think, I can't remember if we have that in here, but there needs to be a requirement to
Yeah, we-
maintain the trees.
We did have something about
To,
that.
Yeah.
to me, it's, the way that the ordinance is written right now is that you have a 7-tree limit on what your requirements are for replacement. And I don't know how they came up with that number. I wish I did. Maybe we can ask somebody who came up with the ordinance, you know, why, where that came up from. When I questioned the mayor about it, he didn't even know that it was in there, okay? Now, whatever it is we do with this, it needs to be practical. And I think that that's kind of where Brian's going, is that, you know, is it possible to meet the requirements of an ordinance, whatever it is we put forward? And so,
Well, is it being met right now?
I don't know.
Nikki would have something to say about that.
She does review all the tree removal and replacement permits and make sure that.
And has it come up that there just simply isn't a place to put the replacement trees required?
I haven't heard of that, but
And I believe, don't we currently have the ability for them to be planted off-site? Is that not a current?
We're allowed
authorization?
to share with a neighbor.
Okay.
You can get the approval of a neighbor to put a tree on their site and meet your quota, right?
But we're getting rid of that.
Yeah, I mean, she said, if I remember correctly, last time that hasn't been used. The
Yeah.
good neighbor
I don't remember
plan
that.
hasn't been
Yeah,
used.
She did say
remember
that.
I remember it the same way you do,
She
Jay.
did say that.
It's not been used, and we even had discussions about putting it in Esplanades or some other places, or in the park, and to my knowledge, none of that has been done either.
Well, I guess we had some discussion also that said that with the way the ordinance is currently written, people have taken advantage of the 20-foot from the power lines to put not replacement protected trees there, but ornamentals, and to meet the requirement.
Right.
And that actually is happening.
Mhm, that's correct,
I guess we were hearing that.
right.
So maybe the numbers are getting done, but they're the wrong numbers, or the numbers are the wrong things, maybe.
I mean, we have discussed in here that if they feel that they can't replace all the trees that are required, they can seek a variance, you know,
Yes.
to plant them elsewhere or not plant that many. But to me, it doesn't sound, and I guess it'd be nice if Nikki was
Yeah,
here
that's
to
number
speak to
7.
that. Mhm.
As we believe that all protected trees and heritage trees removed from a lot should be replaced on the lot if possible, unless a variance is obtained to replant elsewhere, so.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think that's appropriate.
And so, given the fact that we are slightly decreasing the number of replacement trees required, that's item 15, would you be more in favor of increasing the number, like to 10 or 12, or just taking the limitation off altogether? or keeping it as 7.
Do,
What if
do we
you-
have any idea where the number of limitation came from? Why do we have a limitation at all?
What if you were to put some of the requirement into getting a larger tree? Potentially, like,
And that's, also in here, if you take out a tree that is larger than 12 inches, then you're supposed to replace it with 2 trees of 6 inches or more, right?
Three
3
inches, 3 trees 3 inches or more. You gotta replace 75% of the diameter.
So it does turn into a bunch of trees pretty quick.
yeah.
And, and as a practical matter, is it possible to do that? Or is it a smart thing to do that, for that matter? I mean, it's not that you shouldn't put on a tree every 5 feet, so.
If we said that you have to replace it not with 3 trees 3 inches, which is 75% replacement, but we're suggesting we decrease it to 2 trees, which would be a 50% replacement. Another way to do that would be 1 tree 6 inches in diameter, right? In other words, you have to replace
Yeah, that gets to be
the-
real expensive, and I wonder about the survival of a tree like that in a setback area. Because the setback area, well, if it's a side setback, you don't have the problem of the power lines, but in the back, you have the problem of the utility easement. You can't plant under that utility easement. You couldn't put a 6-inch tree under utility easement. It'd be up against the wires almost immediately.
I mean, I had to replace, 7 trees on my lot. I did replace some of them in this utility setback area, which I was, allowed to do. I had no trouble finding places to put the trees.
Okay.
I,
Do we know where the limitation came from? Do you
No,
have
we
any
don't.
clue?
No, we don't. Do you?
No.
Back in the day, whenever I first started looking at code, this ordinance was introduced. It hadn't been passed yet, and I can tell you that 7-tree threshold, that wasn't in the original. I'll bet I even have a copy of the original, but that wasn't in there. It got added later, and I don't know why or how or any of that. I didn't used to go to all the city council meetings in those days, but
As far as this committee is concerned, then, I would just be in favor of removing limitation. Since we don't know why it is there, we don't know what the proper limitation should be, let's just take the limitation out, and if, people above our pay grade feel strongly about it, they can put it back in, but as far as we're concerned, take it out.
I would agree with that.
But if you do this, okay, I think we ought to be thinking on a not completely 1-for-1 basis, but let's watch our ratios here. That every such and such tree has to have such and such, I don't want 3 trees to turn into 20.
I don't think that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
For instance, if some people have a 1-acre lot, and they could theoretically remove 20 trees from that lot,
Yes,
still have plenty of buildable area,
right.
and only replace it with 7 trees. And I think that's what we're trying to prevent.
That's right, we don't want, that's
You know.
exactly right.
And so I think just removing the limitation altogether, should help that from not happening.
Okay,
All right?
I'm okay with that.
you're okay with it?
Okay. All right.
All right, we're done on that one?
Yep.
Number
And then,
15?
15 is, right now, if you remove a protected tree from a setback area, you have to replace it with 3 trees 3 inches in diameter. We're suggesting that we start by decreasing that to 2 replacement trees for each remove, but again, we could go to 1 tree for 1 replacement tree.
Well, if we're removing a 10-inch plus tree, it seems like 2 should be the minimum.
12-inch, yeah.
12-inch, well, whatever the replacement,
Again, the idea is to discourage removing trees from the setback.
Right.
So, and it's very hard, like even the way some of these houses are being built, you can't actually grow a tree in the space they've left, you know, because there's so much height and volume that
Of the building.
there's really no place for the canopy to go, and you don't want the trees really touching the house,
No.
so,
Now, we still have the requirement that in the buildable area, if a house is being built and the tree that was in the buildable area is taken down, we still have to replace that tree, right?
Yes.
So it's a 1-for-1 there, right?
It's 1-for-1.
One for
there,
one,
yeah.
okay, and then it's 2-for-1 in the setback area.
That's
mhm,
right.
Had been 3-for-1.
mhm.
So we're reducing it from 3-to-1 to 2-to-1.
Yes. And those, I have to look at the exact wording, but those 2 replacement trees would still have to be 25% of the diameter, so they could be they would be 2 3-inch trees instead of 3 3-inch trees.
This seems more practical.
I think it's a concession
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
to decrease the total number of trees that you have to
Mhm.
replace.
Yep.
So do we have a thumbs up on
Okay.
that?
We
Yes.
agree with it to begin with.
Do what?
We came up with it.
That's right. That's right.
We're looking for you
Brian,
and
you
Brian
okay
to
with that?
be in consensus.
All right.
I'm doing my best.
Number 16, do we
Okay.
need a motion or anything on number 15 before moving on?
No, I think we have
All right.
consensus.
Yeah, had we been doing this with a motion? I don't, no, we hadn't. No, this is fine.
Yeah.
Let's keep going.
This one is, I'll read it. Development application requirements must include a tree survey indicating the location of all protected and heritage trees together with their critical root zones. So the change there is and heritage trees together with their critical root
Okay.
zone. So that's the new part. I should have made that red. A protection plan must be submitted for these trees to include evidence that sufficient care must be demonstrated to ensure survival of these protected trees, and that's already in the code.
Okay.
But we added including adequate watering during construction.
So that has to be part of the plan.
I would add, including adequate water before and during construction, because sometimes lots sit empty for years before people build, and that's when the trees are dying.
Does anybody have a second
And
pen
that
I
may be
could use?
strategic on the part of the,
Because it should be before, during, and after?
yeah, well, there's that.
You can throw it at me, to me.
I mean,
That makes reason.
I mean,
that
to me,
makes
it,
sense. Yeah.
there's obvious negligence involved,
Thank
and
you.
again, it may be intentional, that people want certain trees to die, so that they aren't
You know,
responsible.
for such a young lady, you're so cynical.
I
How did
am.
you get to be cynical
I
so
know.
young?
So sufficient care must be
But I share your
demonstrated
cynicism exactly, by the way.
before
During and after.
and during construction.
Before, during, and after?
Well, the next one is the 3-year, the new
Yeah.
3-year.
Oh,
Mm.
okay.
So
Right,
we're, yeah,
okay.
so,
Okay. Are we all okay with the wording on number
Yes.
Yep.
16?
Yep.
Okay.
yes.
17, all replacement trees must survive for at least 3 years, and the city arborist or other suitable city employee shall keep track of these replacements so that at 3 years post-planting, their survival and health can be assessed. That is in the code already, except for it just says city arborist. And based on the wording in 17, I want to go back briefly to item 6. This is emphasized the definition of city arborist used throughout I amended it, and I did this on my own, to include a city development official. So the wording would be, city arborist means an ISA certified arborist or a development services officer of the city appointed by the city council to perform the duties of a city arborist.
And
So that means that Nikki could do that
Mhm.
until and unless she's certified as an arborist.
can we add, even a code official? A code
Well, is that picked
enforcement-
up by
a
the-
Code enforcement
The
officer.
development officer, development services officer appointed by the city council?
Would that
Is that-
include a code official?
I don't know if it would.
Maybe some kind of, if you just wanna say city administrator or their designee, and that have issues with, you know, the building official can be different people at different times.
Okay.
I think the city arborist is defined in there, but I think maybe city administrator or their designee would cover,
You say a city administrative officer?
I would say city administrator or their designee, so it's
I think what
city
she's
administrator.
suggesting is city arborist means an ISA certified arborist or the city administrator or designee
Well, maybe not necessarily in the definition.
appointed by the city council. Pardon?
I don't know if that should go in the definition of city arborist, but in the section about who's going to keep track for the 3 years, I would recommend.
Well, the reason why I did that is because city arborist is used 13 times in the codes.
Mhm.
And so rather than going through every one of those and substituting or city, I'm
Sure.
redefining city arborist to be
Okay.
either a certified arborist or a city administrator of the city appointed by the city council to perform the duties of a city arborist. Then I don't have to restate that 13 times.
Now, we've been getting along without a real arborist for some time,
Well,
haven't we?
I think the point of it is the city arborist might be a contracted professional that
Uh-huh.
may not necessarily have someone on staff, so I don't know how, if that were to turn over, I don't want there to be, you know, a lag in that, I would like that to be something that's held in staff, and I just think, I don't know if then the council would have to go then take action to appoint the building, you know, the development services manager as a city arborist acting, you know what I mean?
They would, I mean, that's what it says. An officer of the city appointed by the city council to perform the duties of the city arborist.
And I think, but if the duty is to keep track for 3 years of what trees have been there for replacement, and this contract position changes out, we lose that memory. We lose that record maybe.
There's 13 places where they use city arborist, like a city arborist has to approve the site plan, the tree plan, replanting plan. The city arborist has to
Right.
do
Well,
this.
can we say the city arborist means an ISA certified arborist
I-
or a contractor or development service officer of the appointment?
I,
If we do that, then you've got all three and you let the city council appoint somebody.
I think for this, defining the city arborist is good.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to the next, the point that we're talking about, as far as keeping track, that may not be the city arborist who does that. Maybe it'll be somebody else.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do here is include in the definition of city arborist a person appointed by the city council to function as the city arborist.
Yes.
And then the 13 times when that's in there,
Yes.
that's covered, including this number here.
It would just be different people, so if they appoint, like if, to keep track of that with someone on staff, but they're not the actual city arborist, but someone else would be doing those reviews, so I don't know if they could designate 2 separate people as the city arborist, if that makes sense, cause you know what I mean, there'd be one, I'm just wondering if just,
Well,
far
we
as
could say a
that-
city arborist, or if none exists, a,
Well, you do have suitable city employee shall keep track of these replacements, and that does kind of cover it.
But the question is, should it include a contractor hired outside?
Well, that's where the city administrator's designee could be a contractor or it could be someone on staff.
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think that should go in, the definition of city arborist, I don't think can include a city administrator's designee, I think that needs to be appointed by council. I'm just for specifically just the provision about tracking it, I think I'm seeing the section here in the code that says all replacement trees must survive at least 3 years. The city arborist may contact the owner during this 3-year period to arrange for a site visit, in order to confirm. I think that's all fine as is. I think that's still possibly staff tracking the 3 years and just contacting the city arborist if they think there's a
but
problem.
there's a we haven't had a city arborist for more than
several
2 years.
Well, it's contract. If we need, you know, if we need those services, we would
But
call
you do need them because the code right now says you need a city arborist to approve the tree planting
yes.
plan and replacement plan and to assess their health at 3 years and to do 11 other things. So you're not following the code right now.
They are reviewing plans. We are getting plans reviewed by a city. The follow-up, there might be some coordination with Nikki on that, so she might be doing some of that in place of that person.
Well, then she's not the city arborist, so
Right.
you're not really following the
Well,
code.
I think it would be hard
Yeah, you're kind of
for,
busted here. Yeah,
It's hard to
it doesn't
do.
happen.
Yeah, you don't have, yeah, if you find a city arborist and pay an on staff employee, we would, and
Well-
we're trying to do that with Nikki.
And consider Nikki's plate is pretty full already. Is she going to be the person that's driving around the city checking on all the trees? So it does seem like you do need
Right.
a designee for that.
And that's why I was trying to give you an out by defining the city arborist as a city arborist, or, you know,
Yeah.
somebody from the city appointed to do the tasks of the city arborist.
Does both.
If the council would like to approve that, that's okay. I just would be concerned that they wouldn't want to approve that because that would mean we could possibly have a non-arborist reviewing plans that we're saying we need an arborist.
Well,
Well, that's
ultimately,
what you're-
whatever happens here is going to get approved by city council or it won't.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're not saying that the development services officer or designee is certified arborist.
No,
No.
we're not.
No.
We're not.
And that's what
So
you're
I
doing
think-
right
And
now.
then maybe the
is-
person that goes out and says, I need to get an arborist to come look
Right.
at this tree and not
Mhm.
all of the trees, so.
That's the
So
current
Yeah.
process.
to me, it seems okay. I mean,
Is
pretty
there a
much like it is.
Penalty in the code for if the trees die? What happens when they discover that in 3 years, the trees have not survived?
Well, then you violated the code and you're subject to the penalties
Okay.
defined in the code,
Okay,
Yeah,
Oh,
there
and
is
this-
a violation
which one? Here.
penalty section.
This one?
okay.
a misdemeanor, you know, et cetera, et
Six.
cetera.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think you can pull the
Definition.
CO, but there's probably
The way
some
he's
fines in there for violating.
There are fines.
Development Services
Okay.
Officer.
Is the CRCRC okay with submitting
Development
this
Services.
as a expanded definition of a city arborist? So that everywhere in the code currently where it says city arborist, that job could be done by a city employee.
Okay, I'm all for putting one definition in and using it repeatedly, not a question. The question is, if we don't have a real city arborist, is it a city employee or
What
should
I'm-
we cut some
I
slack?
don't want this
for
development services.
a hired
I would say.
person. That's my only question.
Whoever is appointed.
Okay,
Because-
or,
That-
well, I wouldn't think, if we're not gonna hire a city arborist, then it should be somebody on the city payroll that does it.
Function, they're gonna be
All right.
under the umbrella of development services.
Oh, do we know that?
Unless the engineering firm is gonna, you
I
know,
would think.
they're probably not gonna wanna do it.
I don't, yeah,
Acting in that function.
given we've got only 10 or 12 people on the city payroll.
Yeah, 20, but half our PD. Yeah, 10.
Do I have something?
You know, for the sake of expedience, you know, this probably works. And maybe, my problem with it is that it's specific on development services. And I don't know that that's relevant.
I've already changed that part of the wording.
Then if you've changed that, then I'm
Yeah.
good.
But
So-
I mean, anybody that goes out there, I mean, what if somebody said, Ashley needs to go out there and look at that?
Right.
She's gonna be acting under the umbrella of development services. Not that she is that person, but she's acting in that department.
So this is how I would read the way I see it now. City arborist means an ISA certified arborist or a city administrator or designated officer of the city appointed by the city council to perform the duties of the city arborist.
Okay, I'm good.
And I think that's good.
Okay. So,
Okay,
okay.
go.
All right, so go back to 17 then, it'll just say all replacement trees must survive for at least 3 years in the city arborist. I can repeat the definition in there, or other suitable,
It's,
you know,
it's
blah,
fine.
blah. Okay.
That works.
Shall keep track of these replacements, so 3 years post-planting, their survival health can be assessed. Number 18, this is where we took out the long, complicated three sections on how you could plant a tree off your property to make up for the ones you have to do. And we said that our opinion was that if at all possible, you should plant replacement trees on the property where they were taken off of, unless you want to get a variance from the council or P&Z or whoever. But there was some sentiment in the survey, a strong sentiment in the survey, that there be a program for the city at its expense to plant trees in the right-of-way of residences with owner approval. Or a separate program or a similar program to plant commemorative trees on city property where the cost would come from through citizen donations. I haven't written any language for either of those proposals. I think when you start talking about planting trees on the right-of-way by the city, who's gonna be responsible for their upkeep, and it's a complicated situation, I would think.
I do have a small comment for the right-of-ways. I'm not sure that we should be planting trees in an area that we might need access to as far as like a right-of-way goes, or
Mhm.
where there might be, you know, lines or
Yeah.
water infrastructure. So I'm not sure if in the right-of-ways may be the place for that in this particular.
Well, then, that really negates this whole idea, because if they're in
Well,
the
it's up to
right-of-way, then they could be torn down
Right.
if
they need
needed to
access.
be, and no owner is gonna wanna do that.
But are you gonna also tear down trees that are currently in the right of way? I mean,
Not planning on it, but if there, I mean, it could be Texas Gas, it could be, you know, any other company
Yeah.
who needs that right of way. And that right of way is not consistent across all properties, so we don't always know where an actual right of way exists and where it doesn't.
well, I think we could be strategic though about planning. I think that, first of all, I think we talked about somebody like the Rollingwood Women's Club might take on this sort of task. I think that you could have a situation where the city was willing to pay for the tree and the planting, the installation, and the owner would be responsible for the upkeep. I mean, they're already irrigating other aspects
The front
potentially.
yard.
But if
Yeah.
it has to be and I see a lot of complication there, legal complications.
Well, why don't we just spin this off as a separate little thing, you know, that this ought to be explored,
Okay.
and that we think this might be a good idea, and that we don't really know quite how to execute it, and that there are inconsistencies across Rowanwood as to what a right-of-way is and what streets and so on, and that somebody just pick that up.
Okay, so we could include it in our recommendations as an addendum to, we think this is something that might be worth looking into and.
Given the
develop.
positive response we got to the question, we don't really know how to attack the problem, but think that maybe it'd be worth at least forming some kind of a subgroup to do it. Something like that.
Okay.
What do you think?
I
You all right
think
with
that.
that? Speak, Dukester.
Well, I mean, it seems worthy, but yeah, it's gonna be complicated.
When I presented this to city council and I said, you know, that we're talking about doing this thing, to put things in the right of way, there was an immediate pushback. No, the right of ways are, they're sacred spots, and you can't, you've got the utilities coming there and they're gonna get wiped out anyway. And I go, well, you know what? I doubt that's true, because, there's only one pipe that goes through the utility, and you've got a right of way that is 10 feet wide, so there's a good chance they may not have to cut the trees down. But whatever. And we have, in our property, we have a 10-foot right of way that goes along Rollingwood Drive, and a 10-foot right of way that goes along Randolph. We have two 10-foot right of ways right there. We're not supposed to plant anything in them, but the one along Rollingwood Drive is almost completely filled with trees,
Yeah.
heritage trees,
I
or just
mean,
all over the
my
place.
understanding, you could plant a tree there, it's fine, but you may have to rip it out if they,
Right,
Or you have to watch it get ripped
So-
out.
that's it.
Yeah,
It may happen. So,
and then, in fact, they can rip out the ones that have been there for 30 years.
it could be.
And that's true of any easement, so.
Yeah.
That's true. That's right.
So, would you separate out the idea of a program to commit commemorative trees on city property where the costs come through citizens? That's
Was
just
there any,
a-
is there any opposition to that? I mean, that's just the.
That's just an
The
idea. I'm not
women's,
gonna
women's
write it
club,
into
for
the code.
example, might wanna do something in the park, plant a tree in the park in recognition of somebody. I mean, we've got benches in the park. Why not trees in the park?
Yeah. Yeah.
What other city property is there?
I think, I'll tell you what, you know, what I think would be useful is if we thought that something needed to happen in the park, that one of us go to a park commission meeting and throw the idea out. And say, hey, this is what we've been talking about at CRC. It seems like it's y'all's bailiwick. This is your area. We know that we've got public support for these kinds of things. Do you wanna do something with it? It's up to you guys, it's not us.
Maybe just a quick note, the park commission actually they just took to council a couple months ago to do a memorial tree project of some sort, and they are formulating it right
Oh,
now.
great.
So maybe the note just goes on here, to be developed by park commission, and
We're
they're
supportive
working on it.
of that
But-
idea with her.
But wouldn't it be a good thing if we came in and said, you know, our survey said
Sure,
that this is a good idea,
Sure.
you know, and that, just that, we just stand back, you know, in case you were wondering whether there'd be public support for it, we think there is.
Okay. All right, so that's not actually a proposal to change the tree ordinance, then it'll be just,
Would you like to talk to the park commission?
I think Alex would like to do that.
No, I think you would, cause you came up with that.
I'll talk to anybody you want.
Sure, when the time comes, I do.
Okay, we'll find the right time to do that, but,
Now, 19 is
okay.
something that, it's at the very end of the ordinance, and it requires all vendors doing tree trimming, removal, or demolition to have an annual permit with Rollingwood to do so from the city secretary. Looking at the lists that are posted on the website, that hasn't been kept up at all. I mean, it's 2 or 3 years old. There are many, I don't even know if those people have permits or not.
that may be an old list, we now do ours through My Permit Now, that is being enforced.
It is being enforced?
Yes.
So when a tree service comes in to do the tree demolition for you checked that they have a
That's even
permit?
Tree demolition is even further to like a tree removal permit, that goes through a full review, just tree trimming alone they have to at least do their annual permit through the city
Okay.
for just tree trimming.
And is there a list then of the permitted tree companies that's available to the public?
I think you could pull it on, My Permit Now, I don't know if there's a requirement that we post the list, or what that is, if that's,
It's on the public facing report that
In
you
My
can
Permit
pull
Now.
in My Permit Now.
yeah.
It's so the one that's on the website, then you might want to take that off then, because it's very outdated.
Oh, yes, we would be happy to do that.
What
If
is
you-
the cost to renew a permit?
Tree trimming is free.
Tree trimming permits
Okay.
are free.
Okay,
The
good.
Tree removal and stuff have their own
Right,
associated
but
costs.
for the tree service that has to come get a permit, it's free.
Mhm.
Okay, that's good.
Yes.
Is that done for liability reasons or
We just collect the proof of, all of their
insurances?
insurance and
Okay.
and also, I think they have to go through and note that obviously if it's during oak wilt, they can't trim
Okay.
oaks and things like that.
Then it might be good on the website to just have a link to wherever they need to go to see who has a permit. Because,
Sure.
when I want some trees trimmed or removed, I gotta have some easy place to go to see who's got a permit with the city. I,
Yeah, this is a very old list on the website.
I can tell you that there are plenty of tree trimming going on in Rollingwood
Yeah.
of
Yes.
unpermitted companies,
Yeah, putting notes in the mailbox about, we'll come mix it.
yeah.
If they're doing that, they have to have a tree trimming permit and a solicitation permit.
Put it in the mailbox.
Yeah.
So what's our action
Put it in
here?
the mailbox.
No, that's
We're
actually.
we gonna take this off?
No, we leave it in there then, in the ordinance, because it just says they have to have a permit, so,
We're not changing anything, are we?
no,
So
we're
in
not
other words,
removing
Being
it.
enforced.
So this is, we leave 107,380 in and that's it.
That's
Yeah.
it,
We're done with that.
yeah.
Okay. I had one more comment about this, all the way back to item 7 here. We probably talked about this last time, but I forget what we came up with, but it says, you know, that removed from a lot should be replaced on that lot if possible, comma, and unless variance obtained to replant elsewhere. I don't like the if possible.
Just leave that out.
Just, you know, either
I know Brian
you're
said
gonna
it
get
legally.
a
that
variance or
doesn't
you're
mean
not gonna get a
anything.
variance.
Well, if it's not possible, you go to the Board of Adjustment and get a variance.
Yeah, get the variance, that's it. If possible, just feels a little
Okay,
like there's too much room in it.
yeah,
Yeah.
scratch that out.
Too
I'm with
much
you.
ambiguity, and
Okay.
that you're inducing ambiguity.
Yes.
And then I put in the red the actual wording that I'm proposing. Last time we just talked about the concept. If anybody has any objections to the red stuff,
No, I wept.
you wept. You don't like to see red,
I was so moved.
especially like the critical root zone. We didn't talk about the specifics of that. We just talked about how it was defined.
Yeah.
But in the code, it would say no construction or disturbance shall occur within an area that constitutes more than 50% of the total critical root zone and 1/2 of the radial distance of the critical root zone for each tree being preserved as a protected tree or heritage tree. So they can dig into the critical root zone up to 50% of the area or within the half the radial distance of the tree. And that came from other ordinances where I assume an arborist said, you can do that and not kill the tree. I don't know that for a fact, but I lifted it from, I think this came from Leander's ordinance,
I think that's consistent with the city of Austin.
City of
As
Austin
well.
also, okay. So we're okay with that extended definition? Okay. All right, I think,
So you'll make some touches? and-
yeah,
Cool. On your availability, you're not going to be here tomorrow, or what will happen?
I won't be able to attend for the next 3 weeks.
Okay, will you be able to smith this a little bit and get it back to us?
Sure, I'm leaving on Thursday, I'll do it.
Oh, you're leaving
Tomorrow.
on Thursday?
I'll do it tomorrow. No
Be
problem.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not gonna rewrite the actual code for it, but I'll just rewrite this part.
Okay, we'll leave that for later. Thank you,
Okay.
thank you. We'll get this circulated and maybe take one more hack at it while you're gone, but I don't think so. All right? I think we are done with agenda item number 3. So let's move along to agenda item number 4. You good? For discussion and possible action on building height / envelope subcommittee progress.
Okay. Well, you have in front of you something that starts with survey results. Doesn't really have a title. And the building height envelope, obviously, it kind of collects a lot of the questions that were on the survey, so there's a lot of overlap. And we've been trying to parse what people were saying or not saying and kind of where the Venn diagram brought together kind of consensus. So just to kind of review, question 2 was, should Rolling Wood consider code changes? 175 people said yes, so 64% said yes. 29% said no, but 15 of those were kind of ambiguous when you read through it, more like sort of yes. Of those that answered no, there shouldn't be changes to the code, 33% still went on to say they did want change. So question 2 was, general. And of those, there was 30% wanted changes to the way we measure height. I'm just sort of pulling out the larger numbers, which are in blue. And 26% said they would want some limits along the setback. 19% said they would want some form of tenting. of the people that said yes to code changes, 77% wanted change to how we measure height, which is what we were calling the reference datum. Most people felt that the setback distance was okay, so I think we've kind of decided that we might leave the side setbacks as they are, the 10 and 15 or cumulative 25. 122 want some form of building limitation along the setback. So we're using setback in two different terms, but this one is also kind of the tenting or side articulation. And then 117 wanted some form of tenting. So to go to the question about the maximum height, most people felt that it was about right, pretty strongly. So I think that we've kind of concluded that we're leaving the maximum height at 35 feet. The next question was, well, how do we measure that?
Yep.
And so, to me, it seems like the consensus was, where are my other notes? That you could either measure an average, you could measure a series of points around the major corners and average that, which is complicated, or you could just do the parallel plane, which is clean, straightforward. It's very easy to do graphically for an architect to just take the ground plane and move it 35 feet up. You see if the building falls within that.
Is that also true of a rebuild where you scraped something, where you scraped an older home, if it had done some grade alterations, excuse me. I don't know why I would sneeze. Right. Sorry, okay. If the older home that was scraped had done some grade alterations, what do you use? Do you use the natural grade, or can you even find that? Or do you use the grade as?
I think that's existing grade. I mean, it's what's there, so that's existing grade.
All right. I'm all for
Yeah.
the concept.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
need a grade that's not with this datum point that's created so much ambiguity.
So existing grade is different from natural grade in that case. Natural grade would be if you took the slope all around and you just.
There's very little natural grade left at this point in
Uh-huh.
Rolling Woods.
We
so.
don't know what the natural
Yeah.
grade would be in some cases. But the footprint of the houses that are being replaced are probably typically smaller than the footprints of the houses that are gonna replace them. So to some extent, you do, at least part of the property, you've got what could be considered natural grade. It's
Mhm.
not built on, it is landscaped or whatever it is from the heritage house. So, you work with what you got. And what we got is a surveyor goes out there and he surveys it in the way that it is today, and that becomes our starting point.
That's existing grade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I also think that you have to take into account finished grade. And so I think that somewhere it says whichever is lower. Let me see. Because you can do all sorts of things to the topography. You can build it up, you can carve it out. If you carve it out, it can, there are lots of changes in gaming, so I think it really has to be.
I live right over here on Hadley, and nearby there's been a big new house that just finished, and people just moved in the last couple of weeks, and the first thing they did when they tore down the old house was carve out a 2-car garage, and then they built another 2-car garage on top of that, by the way. But okay, now what does your articulation mean in that kind of situation? Because have you said we have to measure the 35 feet from that newly carved out garage?
If that is the bigger impact, yes. The house cannot be above a 35-foot line from the nearest adjacent grade. Right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
I'm not offended by
That
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 house.
example you're giving though is, that's only a two-story element. Then the rest of the house might tier
Step.
up a little higher.
Yeah.
But that particular component is really just a two-story element.
I think you're right.
Okay,
So
all
you're,
right, I just
it's
wanted to get it in my
probably-
I mean, it's
mind
a
what,
pretty-
what it is, I didn't understand exactly what that would look like,
yeah,
and I wanted to understand that.
um,
And if that's what it is,
yeah, I think you're exactly right, because I think that if they did put, if they had a basement and then 2 additional stories above that, they would probably start to exceed the
Yeah.
35-foot rule.
This lot has never been built on, just
Mhm.
for example, which is really rare. But if there was a slope from one side to the other side, where do you put the existing grade?
Well, the existing grade is whatever that slope is, and you just take that line and you
Duplicate
mirror it 35 feet
35 feet up.
vertically.
Get
Okay,
yourself a 35-foot pole and stick it around anywhere
so it
you
could be
want.
35 feet above grade on the right side of the house, and on the left side of the house.
Jay's talking about not front to
Oh,
back grade,
yeah,
but
either
side to
way.
side grade.
Side to side
So
grade.
you'll end up basically, and this is what people do, they kind of terrace, they
Okay.
step, you know, to
At every
follow.
point of the slope, it's 35 feet above that point.
And
Mhm.
no more than 35.
No more than 35.
Okay.
And you can go into the ground as much as you want, as long as it's not visible. You know, you can have a basement that doesn't count. You could have 4 stories, but if it's not, if the grade is outside of that story, you're fine.
But, wait a minute, you've lost me again, because you said at some point, it's the lesser of, or the lower of, here we go. There shall be no point of any building or structure that exceeds the prescribed height above existing or finished grade, whichever is lower, and that's why I asked the question about the carved out area of that garage, which probably was about 10 or 12 feet.
Yeah, but
And as Duke has said, that's maybe just that shortens that element of the house.
yeah, and you're only measuring that element, because I think the rest of the house gets bigger over here, but so does the grade.
The grade gets higher.
The grade gets higher, and so,
There's a lot of slope to that lot.
But if there was
There
already
was a lot of
30
slope.
feet at that point where they buried 10 feet below, that would then exceed the 35 feet.
Yeah,
But
you-
you also just mentioned you can have a basement. So what defines below grade acceptable versus below grade not acceptable?
that's
Like,
a
would
good
that be
question.
considered a basement?
That's a good question. Like, there are some cases where it's not visible from the street or the public right of way, but you might have kind of a partial basement that may get taller. And that's a question I have, is do we
How do we define that?
define that differently?
What is finished grade from?
Finished grade is just where your floor level is, and it could be anywhere with respect to the
So if you
soils.
build up your
That's-
building site 10 feet
Finish-
up, that's the finished grade now, right?
Well,
Wait a minute.
Yes.
Finished floor is your finished level, living level.
Mhm.
Finished grade is your final landscape
Sorry,
grade.
Right.
Okay.
And so you could
Whether you
theoretically,
backfill or you excavate more in the end, could be different.
so you could build up your building pad 10 feet and then start measuring your height from
well,
there.
that's why you
No,
have to measure
No,
either.
start from
That's
the-
not
you
finished
Start
grade.
from the original survey.
From the original existing natural grade.
Yeah. If you wanna bury your first story, you can do it.
Oh, I see. So it should say above the existing or existing finished grade.
Yeah. I don't see an issue.
Okay.
As long as we're using the original survey as our starting point.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Whatever that is, 35 feet above that, whatever that is, that's the most you're allowed to have.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
And there will
Dave
be,
described it best, take a
there's a
35
house
foot
immediately
pole and
behind
wherever
me.
you put it.
where 25 years ago, they brought in a whole hell of a lot of fill.
Mhm.
And that's something I have a little heartburn over, because they did not put a wall up, they just
Rolled it
towed it onto my lot. But if if that house were to be demolished, no reason it would be, it's a fine modern home, but that would be then the finished grade of that lot from where we would start.
Nice trick.
And,
Thank you.
I mean, that's what I've got behind me now,
Yeah,
so it's not a big deal to me, I'm just simply trying to respond to Jay's questions about what is the final grade. And
Yeah.
it could be a really modified grade,
yeah.
but it's gonna be the starting point when you do a demo of what's there.
Well, that's why you have to take into account the existing grade and the finished grade, because, nobody should be subjected to a more extreme situation, on either end of that,
I agree completely with that.
so.
I agree.
I
I
think
I did some driving around this afternoon to look at basically since I'm not an architect, but I know a little bit about regulations and things. I drove around to see is there something about that I object to? And this formulation would encapsulate what I liked.
Yeah,
I don't like some of the architecture, but I mean, as far as the house goes, with the exceptions, and we'll deal with that when we deal with the setback lines and articulations and tinting and all that. I mean, one of my wife's best friends is Jeannie Nyer right over here on Ashworth, where her home is lower, and I'm wondering whether we need to deal with that, but let me get one idea at a time if I can. But next to her, somebody's built a full height, solid wall that just dwarfs her house now, and we need to prevent that, but that's the tinting and the articulation issue, that's not the
and the
total height.
restriction, all of these things kind of overlap and work together, and we're trying to find the fewest pieces to maneuver to get to that, like the least complicated. And
Right.
so, there are a lot of homes in Rollingwood that are, large or whatever, but they obey the 35-foot rule by following the grade. And so they're pleasing to look at, you may not like the big house or whatever, but they succeed in.
Have you looked at the house at 302 Inwood, which is just a big steel frame right now?
Ooh.
That one, is that one 35 feet? How is that one measured?
Which one are you talking about again?
302 Inwood?
It will be 45 feet or 44 or
Yeah, the old
something.
rule is
That's
45,
Gerald
because of
Lamar's
the 10
old
feet
house.
with the slope.
So I think they currently have 2 stories framed, and they're gonna add a third to that.
So it's gonna be 3 stories with probably a roof deck, for that matter.
We're going to have, I think, more of those maximum size houses coming into the town. And I say that because, again, near me on Wallace, right over here, I'm on Hatley and near the intersection with Wallace and comes past the pool. There are 2 homes that have just gone on the market adjacent to each other, which would end up being a total of close to 2 acres.
Well, somebody actually currently owns both of those. And
Does
was
someone own both of them?
planning to build a house, but now they're selling them, so. But
Well-
yeah, somebody could buy both or not.
Okay, I don't know any facts, but as an observer, I figured that the person that bought those 2 houses was trying to subdivide into 3 lots, cause they could get their 100
If
foot
they have
on
100 foot frontage.
Hatley and on Brockway.
I hadn't thought about that, but that might
And
be true.
I just assumed that since they went back on the market, they had too much trouble trying to re-subdivide. They said, I'm giving up. I don't know, but that's what it looked like.
I think I had heard that they were gonna actually combine the 2 lots, and it was gonna be an estate lot, but
Okay.
that's second
And
hand
then-
and third hand.
Well-
Right over here adjacent to the house on Pleasant Cove, or Pleasant, that we have the big house
Yeah.
with a lot of exposed,
Mhm.
I don't think that's a basement, is it now?
No,
That's just foundation.
Just fill.
12 or 14 feet of foundation height there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right behind that is a big lot that now has a construction fence around it, the old Butler house. I don't know what's planned there. Do you have any idea?
That, Yeah, I think that guy.
So we're gonna have,
Yeah,
we need to get this done.
that's right. That's
Okay.
right.
We
That's
need to get this
exactly
done
it.
so we can put this on.
That's right,
Well,
yeah,
both
that's it.
sides.
Those things.
There was a lot of support for changing how we measure building height, 62%. And the majority of people preferred this parallel plane, so if we can
Okay.
move on from that.
I have a question about existing grade. Is there often use of fill? Like you mentioned in the house next to yours, there was fill.
Yeah, behind me, yeah.
Is that used much anymore? Because
I
does
haven't
this kind of
seen
put
it.
a stake in the ground to existing grade? Like you really can't change it at this point if you want to stick within the code?
You mean a survey post?
No, the way that the language is written in the proposal, it
Mhm.
mentions existing grade.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if you guys know the current projects better than I do. Like, is fill often used to adjust the shape of the lot or the slope?
Absolutely.
Yeah, would that dramatically change the flexibility around that if everything is now staked to existing grade? Like, would you limit flexibility on the builder side of things?
Well, it's existing or finished.
Okay.
But there, you can build up the site, I suppose. No, you can't, because you'd have to go with
Conceptually,
existing.
it would limit it,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean that somebody could kind of work within the tent and make it all work and use a lot of
Mhm.
fill,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
okay? But I mean, there's talking about old lots that have a lot of fill. Look, when old man Hatley cut in the streets and
Yeah.
everything, at least on my second house, I know he just dumped a bunch of fill there, and we had to deal with it. We had to remove it.
Because it's almost like you've now locked in whatever decisions were made up until this point. Now it's like, okay, all that stuff happened up until now. Now nothing changes.
Yeah, and I mean, look, all the park areas just got tons of fill.
Mm-hmm.
But what you said is true, that's right. It is what it is today.
Yep.
We don't care what it was 100 years ago.
Yeah. This is the way it's going to be from now
This
on.
is the way it's gonna be from
Yeah.
now on, yeah.
Well, and that's the thing, kind of getting back to basic architecture. You buy the lot based on what it is and whether or not you think you can build on that. Like, is it
Mhm.
appropriate? Do you like the way it's sited? Do you like, its orientation? Do you like how sloped the street is? Like, you have to make all of these decisions. You can't come in and decide that you're going to transform it into something that it really shouldn't be.
What we
you
need
know?
to do though, and I think what Jeff's worried about is if the house right around the corner over here that has the big foundation, if they could have brought in 12 feet of fill and gone 35 feet above that rather than have that foundation count as part of the 35 feet, as ugly as it might be, we don't want that. We don't want that fill to be
Right.
zero, the zero line.
That's
Well,
right.
that could have been a lovely walkout partial basement space, that engaged the landscape. Instead, that house could be anywhere. And that's the thing, it's like, you need to work with the landscape that's there or find a different lot.
But regardless, whatever it is you're doing, you're still using your existing grade, your original survey, that thing that you use to apply for your building permit as your starting point. And that's it. And anything above 35, more than 35 feet above that existing grade is not permitted, period. It's really pretty easy.
Except whatever the little chimneys and.
The only risk I see is someone coming in the dead of night with truckloads and truckloads of fill and putting things in there before they put the bill.
I think that
And
would
then
be,
building
doing their
permit.
survey.
I think the cops would figure that one out.
Which,
Well,
so,
That's a good.
Well, and they had to buy the lot with a survey, so you can always go
You're not allowed to do that
back.
without a building permit. You're not allowed to dump truckloads and
You
truckloads.
can
of fill.
always find the old plat surveys, so,
yeah.
okay.
All right.
So, question 7, referred to change the setback dimensions, and this is, you know, the 10 foot or 15 or whatever.
Okay.
I think that, you know, we mentioned this above, but it seems like keeping the setbacks as they currently are, maybe, I can't read your,
It's okay. No,
okay.
you don't have to read.
Okay, I think that my interpretation is that if we did things vertically along the setbacks to control that, then leaving the side setback dimensions horizontally is okay.
It's okay.
I know it's confusing,
All
but
right.
we're gonna leave the front and corner setback to be discussed.
Yeah.
Okay, you're not, what are your thoughts?
Oh, you know, we had kicked this around a lot about the side setbacks and stuff. You know, and I have my own side setback issue, you know, that I'm confined to. Because we do have the right of way on our, or that is effectively part of our property, right? In the email that I read recently from you that talks about, you know, what's going on in a different lot on a corner and where they've rechanged, I guess they reset the address so that they could get a 20-foot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I wonder how fair that is, you know, but I'm not trying to keep anybody from doing what they need to do. You know, the rules are the rules, and if we want to change the rules, we'll probably have difficulty in this area.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I'm probably more interested in being able to progress our work and not have everybody focus on this one little point and say, oh yeah, well you're going to change the setbacks, you know, and that becomes the only thing that anybody talks about. So for the time being, you know, we can probably take this off the plate. Just say, okay, we hear you. It did not play well in either city council or P&Z.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I don't think that the survey
And
supported.
it's not supported by the survey.
But what did come up a lot was possibly corner setbacks and addressing that. So I think we still.
Well, it may be, but, you know, I think the thing that probably the only thing that we can do with the setbacks is that got some support and maybe a little bit of a nod from both commissions, both committees, was putting at least portions of a pool in a setback. And we may be able to do something with that.
But I think we pulled back on that last meeting because what could happen is that one of the projects we're talking about recently, they've built out the entire buildable area. And if you could build even more because you can push your pool outside of that, I think that.
Well, if you've only got a 20-foot setback in your backyard, right, then all you've got is 20, you know, if we said some portion of the pool could go in there, well, that's fine, but I mean, as the other portion inside the house, I don't know, but, you know, I don't think we're talking about that you're allowed to build a pool completely in a setback. We're talking about possibly giving some grace to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that maybe you could allow 5 feet into the setback, your pool. So if you have a 5-foot pool, I guess so, I guess you could do that.
Under normal circumstances, I wouldn't have a problem with it at all. I
Yeah.
don't think it's an impact to have the pool 5 feet closer to the back fence or
Right.
not. It's,
Right.
but my concern is that the pool is a regulator for the amount of building size that you can build within your building footprint.
Yes.
And if you take that out, based on stuff we are seeing under construction right now,
Yeah.
you're just going to have more house.
Okay.
But maybe FAR comes into play if you wanna, I don't know.
Where are we on FAR? It seems to me to be an allied, but
I think it's back to picking a number that is kind of a stopgap, that if you run the gauntlet and you get through all this other stuff, but you still have a giant house, you're stopped by a number.
Kind of like the 35-foot max.
You gotta kind of
Yeah.
do it at the end,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
It's hard
So
to pick
for-
a number until you have everything else set.
Just
And
put it-
based on what we've seen, it won't matter to most people.
It needs 2 things. It means we got to have a number, and we got to have a definition as to what that number means. You know, you know, what portion of a building is included in a FAR. That's it.
And I
If we
think,
have those two things, then we can max it out and we can say, this is the maximum you're allowed to do with this.
yeah, I think
Correct.
as you said from P and Z, you guys said anything that's under the roof.
Anything
basically.
that's under the roof.
So a covered porch?
I like that because it was suggested and it'll pass.
Yeah. Does that include a covered porch?
Yes, it would.
Okay.
Garage.
It would include everything.
So that just means the FAR number is gonna be higher.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
You'd have to adjust the number.
It's simple. It's simple. Nothing to it.
Okay.
Is this in? Is it not? Is it got a roof over it? Yeah, it's in.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense because I have a covered porch, but my neighbors don't care if that's indoor or outdoor. They don't care. It's building size to them.
It is. It's a
Mm.
building. That's right.
So
Yeah.
makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to make a bigger number.
We need a number.
Yep.
Do you have a number?
No, because you'd have to adjust for that.
Yeah. How do we?
You have to
yeah,
go back and adjust
I
for
just
that.
think
Right.
that's gonna come at the tail end.
Okay.
All right.
Don't grind over it now.
But it's going to be harder to calculate the number now if you're calculating it differently from
Mhm.
because now we have no data.
Because it's not in TCAD.
It's not TCAD, yeah. I don't know if we can calculate the data easily.
Well, if we
But it's
pretend,
okay.
let's pretend that that we've got the worst case possible, building to the edges of the
Yeah.
property, building to the edges of the setback line, right? And you build the biggest box you can on
Yeah.
a 1/3 of an acre lot, and you say, okay, well, what's that going to be as far as an FAR?
Yeah, that's right. We just have to do it. We just have to
give
do it by
give
hand.
it the worst case.
Yeah, we won't have the data set to work with. We'll have
Right.
to do it by hand. We'll have to pick a few lots. We'll have to calculate it out. That's it.
But we have some of those, we have those situations.
No,
going.
we do.
Yeah.
We can
I
actually
mean,
show a picture
we
of
have
it.
those over on Timberline, where the lots are 100
The
feet by
maximum-
150
that's right,
feet,
the
and
maximum-
they've got a.
The maximum FAR looks just like this.
It's gonna come back to the TCAD data. Just increase it by 10% or something. It's just gonna be a factor higher
Okay.
than that. It's gonna.
Okay.
It's something. It's solvable.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Keeping on the list, question 9, setback building limitations. This is the articulation, if there's an eave height maximum, tenting, all of those things that happen along the perimeter of the building, along the setback. A lot of approval, support for that, 56%. And then on that as well was the question about tenting. 142 people said yes. I didn't do the percentage on that, sorry. But even of the 112 that said no, 23 still wanted some setback building limitations. So then to go through these, I think, checking off height, we all agree that the maximum height should be 35 feet and that we are recommending the parallel plane. Do we want to do anything on that? Do we want to pass that along? What do you want?
Well-
more discussion?
okay. You said, okay, like you say here, include graphic. Okay, we had a graphic in the survey.
Yeah.
Can we just post, do you believe that that graphic adequately describes what it is we're saying? Or is it too simple?
Did I draw the graphic? I
think
don't actually remember what it looked
I think, well, I don't know, I forget. But
like.
No, there was.
Yeah.
there was the graphic.
Yeah.
See, what I think carried the day in the survey is that, we had the three choices and we said that this would still enable, 1 and 2 would still enable a greater than 35-foot height or a greater than maximum height, whatever it would be. But this one would not. This one would not allow anybody to build over the maximum limit
At any point.
at any point. You can't do it, okay?
We wouldn't
And
have,
that
we wouldn't
carried- I
have the 10
believe-
feet, the extra 10 feet allowance,
And I
which is
believe
the
that
current
carried,
system.
that carried the day,
Well, you can be standing below a house that's going up slope,
right?
and from where you are to the high point, if you were to just draw a line, that will be more than 35 feet. But if you were to take that point over to the side of the house and
Yeah.
look at the contour, it's not going to be above
No,
35 feet.
not.
So, you know, you don't want to give the impression that you have to build a house that has this slope on it, because that's, people think that that's just not workable. But really, you're still talking about 35 feet, which is a big house.
It is.
I mean, my house is 29 feet, and it's a big house. So you can still get the volume of house that you want.
Yeah.
It's not.
But it, yeah. So, we need a graphic, I think.
Okay,
If that's
then
the
we use
graphic
that
that
one.
works, I'm good,
we'll add that.
you
graphic.
know? And I think that this does it.
Okay.
I think this closes the door on that, because the rest of it is gonna be picked up by the building envelope
Yeah.
piece.
Yeah.
Now you're talking about what happens at the edges.
Well, you
Right.
want to move on to that?
Here's the survey. Let me see.
Oh, okay.
I love, you know,
Yeah, that works.
I think this is, the people have spoken, and this is what we're gonna do.
Okay. I have shared a couple of graphics with the building subcommittee about, we're now moving on to the side setback planes, also known as tenting. Sort of, some cities call it bulk management. And really, from the graphics, the things to do are, and what other cities have done, is they choose along the property line a height to start at. Some cities are 12, some are 15, and then from that point, you have a 45-degree angle that cuts back, and you can't build within, past that line, similar to the 35-foot. Here's some
Yeah.
stuff.
Are you being absolute about that, or are we talking about allowing some dormer kind of window, or?
You can have some dormer kind of window, but I think
Projection.
we would wanna limit the horizontal run of that,
I agree
so that you
completely.
don't
I
have
agree completely.
the complete side of the house. What I kind of surmised, is if you do kind of a hypothetical building, and you can weigh in on this, but let's say you have 2 feet of foundation, which is generous, and a 12-foot plate for your first floor, and even 2 feet of, space between is more than most people need, and then 9 or 10 feet on top, that's still a 25-foot eave height. And that corresponds, which is typical, I'm gonna say. That corresponds with, if you are on a 10-foot setback with a 15-foot line spring point, and you take your 45 line over, you get to a 25-foot wall height. So that's one thing that you could say, is that on a 10-foot setback, we're using a 15-foot spring point, and then the 45-degree line, with exceptions such as dormers and things like that. If you're on the 15-foot setback, you know, it's gonna be different, but I think that,
Didn't you just say 15?
I said 10, but I used a 15-foot vertical line as your spring point.
Okay.
So we're 10 feet off our property line, and the building is 10 feet off the property line. And
All right.
you go up 15 feet, and then 45, and you get a 25-foot height wall. So,
For the vertical wall?
for the vertical wall.
How do you get there? Because if 15 feet up, you,
Let's see.
Cause you're 10 feet away.
Yeah, you're
Not
10
on the
feet
line.
away, and you go up 15 feet, and you go over 45, and that intersects at 25 feet.
I see, okay.
And then the 15-foot.
But you don't have the 25 feet on the building line. You've set it back. That's what I'm after.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Right,
25
right,
feet on the
right.
10-foot setback line.
Yeah,
It's on the
you're 10
building
feet away.
line, it's not on the property line.
Yeah.
Property line.
Yeah.
But then the next question would be, well, what if you have a 15-foot setback? If you use the same 15-foot vertical spring point, you can get pretty high. And so I don't know if we shouldn't use two different numbers of vertical.
For the spring point,
Yeah,
and that, I think that's okay.
And then what if they're,
so it could be, go ahead, like.
well, what if it's in the middle? I mean, what if it's a
Yeah, if
What
you
if it's-
take it, would you say, would your spring point before was a 10
Like-
foot back, how high, where's your spring point?
Say that again?
45 degrees, if you got 45 degrees, what's that? That's 25 feet at the building line, right?
Right.
25 feet. So if you go back to 15 feet, what's gonna get you 25 feet?
yeah,
It's just a geometry question.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I gotcha.
I guess it's really trigonometry.
I think it's more like,
Geometry.
this is not very accurate, but somewhere in the 10-foot spring point. If we wanna get from here, from out here.
That can't be.
to
I can't
here.
believe
Yeah.
that.
Well, it's intersecting here, this is intersecting there.
Well, at the
Yeah.
10-foot setback, the 15-foot spring point gives you 25 feet, right?
15-foot spring point.
That's
Yes.
pretty much-
45
Yes.
degrees off.
This
Yeah.
Farley Trail example
Right.
demonstrates that.
Yeah,
Pretty close. It's not perfect, but it's close.
well,
And the
and
12-foot
if you're,
spring point is about 22-ish.
but the other thing is, not everybody's gonna use 10 or 15, they may use 12, or
Yeah,
they may
what if
use
it's
11, and, you know,
Yeah.
so maybe there needs to be,
But that's okay, if it's
Okay.
11 feet.
It's a benefit of being on the 15 feet away. Isn't
Yeah.
that a benefit you get for
Yeah.
building
Yeah.
further away from the house?
although this one
Come
is
on.
built, right now, this is actually 20 feet. This is where it is right now. So this wall is coming up all the way to here. And it's still pretty imposing. It's a lot of, you know, so I think that you really want this to come down no matter what.
Is this for
Okay.
publication, or is this,
So
This
this is
isn't one of your
12-foot
projects,
line
is it?
on the
No, this is
15.
analysis.
this
She
is what
did.
she's
just
doing?
above.
This is over the new house under construction.
Question,
Yes.
Mm.
is it relevant whether the adjacent lot is lower or higher?
It should be.
Because I can think of a situation where the adjacent lot is lower, and while we have
Mhm.
moderated
This was the last thing she said.
with this program,
I didn't
which
see
I'm
it.
very supportive, we have moderated the big wall.
Well, I thought it was the last thing she
If the house
said. She said something
adjacent
this afternoon.
is already
Yeah, I think so.
Lower.
Must be that.
lower
Must have-
by 10
She
feet
said
or
this to
something
begin with, and then she said,
noticeable,
Yeah.
whatever that might be,
I gotta go back and do more homework.
they're still gonna be
I don't know
looking
if
up
I
at a
look
big
this.
That's
Exactly.
and
that's
I don't know that we can really do anything about
no,
that.
we can't. That goes back to my initial question with are we sitting in stone with the existing grade? Because if you bought the higher lot,
Right, right.
why am I penalized now? Because
Because
before
my
all of
neighbor-
this, I got the higher lot, you got the lower lot. What do you mean? Now I have to live in a little box because my lot happens to be higher than yours?
I guess
Yeah, I wanna
the question for the lower lot owner is, okay, go build, instead of your little one story,
Yeah.
that now seems to be so dwarfed by the new house, build yourself a big new house within the FAR that we come up with and
Yeah.
the tinning rules.
I mean, it's an interesting question. I don't think you penalize the upper lot for the lower lot. Could you be more lenient on that?
Yeah, I don't think we can
Yeah.
honestly write anything that's going to capture
It's really hard.
all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that we just have to, like, this wall we're talking about in this case, it's 90 feet long. And the height is, what have you got?
Keep that for later.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I did ask you, thank you.
I just,
Okay, cool.
That's before we deal with articulation.
exactly.
It would be 90 feet of
And then there's
a
another
monolithic.
63 feet up on the second story, and it's, that whole side is just flat with, you know, very few windows. It's just, you know.
And that is the house that is what? Where's that one?
Well, we can't, I don't really wanna say out loud,
Okay.
so.
Alex, you know, I'm seeing this for the first time,
Yeah,
all right?
okay,
And you know, I love it. I think it's great. That I'd really like to study it.
okay,
And, I think this is it.
okay.
You know, this is the right thing. We just need to make sure that we got the right words around it and all that. But we're well on our way to
Okay.
getting this.
That's cool.
In my 2 cents, I wouldn't adjust it for how far you are from the setback line. I think it's complicated, and I think you give a benefit to someone if they're further from the setback line.
Okay,
Yeah,
That's
so-
a reason to build further from the setback, which is
yeah.
kind of what we're going for.
So do we,
Then I would probably choose a smaller number. And it doesn't have to be 12 and 15, it could be 14, you know, it could be,
okay, you've been talking about, mostly I think so far, and I haven't heard everything, but it's like the side setbacks.
mhm.
So does the front and the rear setbacks come into play in all this too?
Yep,
It does,
Yep.
okay. Is that in what you had sent out? Is that in that, or
I
does
haven't
that
seen
need
the
some
drawing that
work
does
on
well,
yet?
for
but-
one thing, is the
Yeah.
front setback is 30 feet.
30 feet,
So
yeah,
you
that's right.
won't even,
Yeah,
you can't
The-
do
Does it-
anything.
does it
It
matter?
doesn't-
The
yeah.
angle tip has no virtual impact.
right,
Yeah.
that is the question, that was the
Yeah.
question. Now, the rear,
The
maybe
rear
so,
could.
It could on
maybe
the
so,
rear,
rear, okay, that'll make some people happy
yeah,
with
Yeah.
downward sloping lots, right,
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
yeah.
Okay. All right, I really wanna study this.
Okay,
And kind of kind of get the geometry
I
in your
agree.
head.
I,
But, you know, and I guess I saw your note this morning, I didn't see, if something came out this afternoon, I didn't see it.
I sent one more follow-up graphic. Well, I might have sent two more
I
graphics.
didn't see, yeah, I didn't see this. I
Yeah,
don't know
you-
what
I
you-
shared with him what
Okay.
you said.
Yeah, it could, can we get that out into a public place? Or, you know, just this, whatever you're presenting here, out into a space?
Do we wanna take addresses off?
Yeah, take the addresses off. but-
Yeah,
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
I can
just-
do that for that.
Okay.
What about if the sides?
I don't love the idea because these are,
I
I
get it, I know where you're at.
general,
Okay,
like
okay,
if we could
okay, okay.
graphically make them
Well, we need,
general.
we,
What happens when the side slopes down? So in that example, what if the side is 5 feet lower?
Yeah, but
No.
you're talking about you have a
Okay.
side-to-side
Wait.
slope on the.
You have to measure from whatever the grade is at the property line.
all right.
That's
Or
where
the
your
setback.
pole goes.
Okay.
It's not, you don't
Is this in our,
drag.
is this in our Google area?
The
In our-
document
Yeah,
center?
some of it, yeah,
It's there?
mhm,
Good enough. I'll find it.
okay. Some of this, I can add this piece to it.
Yeah.
So two
Eventually, this is gonna need to get published, but yeah,
Yeah,
right, okay.
All right, so there's two separate concepts. We talked earlier about the 35-foot max, but now what if in this example,
I just,
your building line is here, but then the side setback is here, but your side actually slopes down here,
mhm.
and then you go down here and you measure 10 feet up and you go this way, and all of a sudden,
Okay. We're gonna have a short side conversation here before Duke takes off.
something to think about. I don't have a good
Yeah.
answer for it.
off the record, I had tons of family for a reunion, so I just got rid of the last one today.
Okay,
I'll,
you're back
I'll
on
be
it.
in touch.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay,
it.
very
Thank
good. All right.
Yeah, I
There's,
mean,
there's,
Yeah,
we're in the right track. I think this is where we wanna be. I think, I'd like to look at what's out there, what you've done. And then
There's only so much
let's
you
make
can
our
say.
next meeting, the focus of our next meeting, okay? that, you know, this will be our primary thing.
Do we have lots,
That
with-
table
do we have
is-
lots
I'm
existing?
gonna try to
lots-
get
Almost
Bryce
10
Cox
feet,
there
you
too.
know what I mean?
please.
So you can't
Yeah.
slope that
Can,
much.
can you make this a 90-degree line from here to here in terms of where you measure it? So you don't measure the
So you're
slope.
measuring from
Like
the
what the slope?
base.
Yeah, the base. It's perfect 90-degree line from there to there, so that if this slopes 5 feet down here, you're not losing those 5 feet.
Yeah, as
Up
long as
here.
it's not building, cause your building is restricted to 35 feet. Yeah, potentially. Yeah, that needs to be worked through.
Brian, you want to say something?
There are places in this town where, probably because of putting septic system evaporative fields in the front yard, we have setbacks, some homes are set back 40, 50, 60 feet.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's right.
And we have other areas where they're much closer
Yeah.
than that. And all of these, my question is, what grandfathering of location do we recognize in the
The
code?
way the setbacks are established is through the original plating. I think I'm saying the right thing here. The way that the properties have been platted is what determines where you're gonna make your setback measurement from, right? So, in our case, in my own particular case,
Mhm.
we're platted with 2 right-of-ways on 2 corners of the lot, right? So therefore, our setback have to be back there, 30 feet on
From
a
the
side.
curb.
No, not from the curb, from the right-of-way. So I'm 40 feet back from the curb, okay? That's what the requirement is. Not
Okay,
everybody
if-
has
but-
that.
But you tore down a house,
Yes,
and I don't know if you built on the same footprint or not.
exactly the same footprint.
All right, did you do that because you,
We couldn't do anything else.
oh. But if that footprint had been 5 feet closer to the curb line,
Yeah,
would you have been able to build to that line?
no. Not the way it's platted, we couldn't have, no.
So I'm testing, really what I'm testing is as I was writing this down, by making my notes, that we don't need to worry about the tenting from the front, because at 30 feet back, it would never
Mhm.
become a problem with the 35-foot height max. And then I said, I think there's some houses in this town, some older homes, that are not 30 feet back. But I may be wrong.
30 feet on a front yard doesn't really necessarily look that big. You know, you got, you know, it's depending on the house, it may not look that big. You know, we've got along Rollingwood Drive on the south side of Rollingwood Drive, just up from us. A lot of those houses look a whole lot closer to the curb than our house is on the other side of the street. Okay? And on our side of the street, I guess we all have a right of way that is 10 feet. So we have a 40-foot setback effectively.
Effectively.
You know, so, and it's fine, you know, but the other side of the
Okay,
street's different.
I took us down a cul-de-sac we didn't need to go.
It's okay. Do we wanna talk about sidewall articulation a little bit?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, because even with the tenting, we can have these great monolithic walls.
Right. And so we've borrowed language from other, cities. So just to throw it out there, if a sidewall of a building is more than 15 feet high and is an average distance of 10 feet from an interior lot line, the sidewall may not extend in an unbroken plane for more than 36 feet. I don't know where 36 feet comes from, if that's the number that we need, along a side lot line without sidewall articulation that meets the requirements of this section. A, to break the plane, a sidewall articulation must be perpendicular to the side property line, at least 3 feet deep. So you can't just build straight across the setback for more than, say, 36 feet without then indenting
By
3
3,
feet
and then how long
and
does
a
that have to
distance
be?
of 10 feet
10?
at least.
36.
And it must be the height of the first floor as well.
All right.
Same thing for the second story.
Okay. Can we get this language,
Graphic.
can we get this to Bryce Cox? for him to look at before?
I can't, this isn't, is this code language that, like, is this?
No, this is rules. This is rules. Are we allowed to do this? That's the question. And that's my question. Are we allowed to say these things?
I can share it with
You understand what I'm saying, Alex?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't wanna.
Well, are you talking about, are we allowed to say them and keep them private, or are you asking whether we can say them? We can say them.
Are we
No,
allowed to
no, are we allowed to
dictate
make this into an ordinance?
what people can and can't
Yeah.
Sure.
do like that?
Well,
That's why I'm here. I'm the lawyer, remember?
okay, so you know that the statutes don't rule against this,
Correct.
okay? Never mind.
I mean, it's a zoning ordinance. You can do damn well almost anything you please.
Oh, I don't think that's true.
In this area, the articulations and whatnot, that's clearly, we can do that. The real strictures that the legislature has put on cities have to do with building ordinances.
Yeah,
Have to use the international building codes with
right, yeah,
certain
yeah,
amendments.
good.
Zoning, as far as use issues are one thing, design issues are another.
Yeah,
The only thing that the legislature has said about design issues is that we cannot, by zoning, pick the exterior material.
and that's what gave me pause. When I saw that, I'm thinking, what else have they said?
They haven't said anything else about that. They haven't said
Okay.
anything else about that.
All right.
If you wanna have siding for 36 feet and then go to stone and then go to stucco on the next 20 feet after the 10 feet, we can't say anything about that.
Yeah,
Okay,
But
that
we
would be
can say,
encouraged.
you could
to-
go 36
yeah,
feet and you have to have an indention and then you
Yeah.
can,
all right,
but we can't say anything about the material,
that's
the
fair.
color.
Yeah, I'm okay with that,
Paint
okay.
it, paint it
I just,
paint it
yeah,
purple, yellow,
this
and
is,
green.
I mean, I think this is lovely, this looks great,
Yeah.
and I just
Well,
wanna
give
make
it-
sure that
give it-
we're allowed to say
Give
it.
it to Bryce and let's see if,
Yeah.
see if he has an objection to it, but I don't see the objection to it at all.
Then let's kind of skip down to foundations as well, if,
Okay.
Where are we?
The
We're,
last,
yeah, last page and, foundations / street.
yeah. The only thing that I added, was that the foundation, cause we've talked about the 6 feet of exposure. There's a lot of homes where, the same material, stone, brick, whatever, may conceal the foundation, as
Okay.
opposed to kind of what we're seeing, the raw concrete probably won't stay raw concrete, but, I think that you should still have a definition for the foundation is, some distance below finished floor grade.
Well, I thought we were talking about we were gonna allow 6 feet of street view, but even then, only like 3.5 feet would have to be still covered by
But we need a
something
definition
landscaping.
of foundation, because
Yeah,
it may not
okay.
be clear when it's all
Okay.
clad, what's what.
All right,
And what if it's a basement, but it's just a big wall? Does that, what if the house over here really was, you maybe couldn't see it, maybe it was all accessed from the inside, does that count as foundation wall?
Or
I mean,
basement.
technically it is. I just think we need a definition
okay.
of foundation and how it's measured.
That's a good question, what you just said. What if it was livable space back there? And they just didn't have any windows?
With no windows in it, it'd be called a dungeon.
Yeah.
Could be, yep.
So maybe windows are
Well,
part of the
does that-
definition.
If it did, then you'd be back to your articulation up here.
Yeah,
There's probably more than 36 feet of that.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, we do say that you have to have, planters and things like that, which is
okay,
effectively articulation.
okay. This is good.
And is that foundation included in your 35-foot
Oh,
measurement?
Yep,
The foundation shall not exceed 6 feet.
where
dot,
it
dot,
has
dot.
not been really before.
That'll
So,
be a
yeah,
huge
that's,
change.
that's
I think
critical,
that'll be
Okay.
yeah.
the biggest thing that'll impact. And now is foundation, I live next door to 20 feet of foundation.
Yeah,
Doesn't really bother me. It's in the backyard.
Yeah.
So are we now saying that has to go down to 6 feet, or is it going to depend on
I
which
think-
way it faces?
I think we're calling it public right of way, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
Visible
the
from public right of way.
streetscape,
visible from the street. Okay,
Yeah.
I agree with that.
so that if somebody is building down into, you know, a green belt or something, that, yeah,
And even then, that's from the street, it doesn't affect the rear, right?
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or it affects it differently.
There's still the
If
height
it were on a
rule,
corner, it
though.
would
Yeah,
affect
we still
the
got the high rule,
side.
okay, that's fine.
So
Okay.
you, yeah,
That's all right. Good.
okay,
Yeah, I'd like to come back to all this in the next meeting.
okay,
Give, you know, we haven't had a chance to digest this,
Okay.
and we need it.
okay.
You know, this might be the most important stuff we're doing.
Yeah.
Probably is. And
Yeah,
we wanna get it right. You said you didn't know where the 36 feet come from. Are your examples, are any of them from Texas?
Well, we had some from the city of Austin.
yeah, they're from everywhere.
Well,
We had
I
the
imagine the
tenting- part of
tenting
the
is, yeah,
tenting
but I'm just
examples came
talking
from
about
Austin.
articulation in that 36 feet, or is that? I'm gonna be
I
looking.
guess, it's not, I just don't understand where the number 36
Yeah,
came from
right,
specifically. I mean,
right.
yeah, I could tell you which city.
And then we can ask them.
Actually, it's probably Austin, actually. Yeah, it is Austin.
It is Austin,
It is Austin.
36 feet.
Yeah.
We're gonna find out why you did that. Why 36
But
feet?
then here's more. This one's 35 feet in length.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is,
Well, I guess my point in all of this is that whatever we say, we need to be ready to defend it.
Yeah.
And just say, you know, well, why are we saying that? Well, you know, we don't wanna be arbitrary. We wanna be able to say, well, you know, these cities did it, and the reason they did it is this, and we agree with that.
Yeah.
We can call up the Austin zoning department tomorrow and find out.
Yeah.
We have 15 minutes left. And I think what I'd like to do, at the very least, if we can't get to other topics, is to establish what our next date's gonna be. Our next meeting date, because
Does the next meeting date fall during spring break?
it falls during spring break, yes.
I don't have kids in spring break anymore, but I have grandkids in spring break who want to
Okay, so
do things.
our next official date, meeting date is the 12th of March.
Yeah, no, I won't.
You won't be here,
Mm-mm.
okay, okay,
You have kids who are on
So-
spring break.
okay. Our next date after that is the 26th of March.
Which
Is
would
that-
then put us having a.
I wanna get another meeting in here. I'm not saying that that's gonna be our next meeting date. I'm saying that
Okay.
our next,
I'm saying to do that would mean that we have a meeting that week and then a meeting the following week.
well, if Desiree has given me 3 dates that are possible for us to get together.
I
One
can
is,
do the 26th.
one is the 7th, one is the 18th, and one is the 21st.
This
Are we
is
talking
March.
about which month?
March.
March. Yeah, we're almost in March.
Well, those are Thursdays.
That's right, those
Oh,
are
okay.
Thursdays. That's right. Yeah, these are dates that we can get.
Okay, gotcha.
We can't get
Yeah.
other dates.
I can do the week of March 18th. I'm available.
That would be a Thursday? I
Yes.
didn't bring my calendar.
What day?
on.
Was
Yeah,
it-
here, let me, yeah.
The 21st, did you say?
Monday the 18th or Thursday the 21st is available.
I can do either of those.
Monday, the 18th, we'll all be sobering up from
St.
spring break
Patrick's Day.
and South by
St.
Southwest.
Patrick's
It'd be
Day.
fine with me. I office downtown at the intersection of Sixth and Lamar, right by Whole Foods, where, and the Waterloo Records, and
Yeah,
I see lots of South by Southwest go outside the window, but I don't go drink with them.
So Monday, the 18th is good with you?
It works for me.
As
And
no, it does
Alex,
for me.
can you do it?
As of now, yes.
Let's do it. We'll call it that. We good with that, Desiree?
Book it,
All right,
book it, Dano.
thank you.
And maybe the building subcommittee can meet again before then?
Share emails or whatever, yes.
Okay.
Walk around and look at things.
Okay.
Well, Duke just assured us that
That
he's gonna
he's
make himself available
Okay,
to
good.
work on this hard, okay?
All right.
So, there we go.
March 18 is a Monday.
All right.
That's correct.
Now, there was one other item. There was the discussion about assigning Jay. Two more items?
Oh, well, there's light subcommittee.
Well, yeah, we're not gonna get there. I mean, these are things I know we have to take care of right now. There is, getting Jay nominated to the lighting subcommittee as opposed to Dave Bench. All right, can I get a motion?
I move.
I'm sorry?
I don't think that requires a motion. It's up to you.
Oh, we have been voting people in. We have been doing
Most
that.
of the time, it just,
We have
they
been
don't
doing
require it, but you can.
Yeah, we have been creating the subcommittees by motion. Okay,
I move that Jay be appointed to the lighting subcommittee.
and that
I
Mr. Bench be
second.
taken off.
Yes.
Okay. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Good, so it is. All right, now, no, not yet. We do have, it does not appear that we have anybody here to speak on behalf of the lighting subcommittee. So, item 5 is, we're not gonna do. Item 6 is discussion and possible action on recommendation regarding the driveway ordinance. All that I'm asking is that we can go to P and Z in this upcoming P and Z and say, would you strike this from the current code? Do we agree to do that? We've gotta wait for,
I'm
I
good.
gotta wait for Brian to come back,
Yep.
but okay. The next P and Z meeting is this, coming Wednesday, by the way. We've already hit item 7, discussion and possible action on future meeting dates. Okay, we're gonna make your agenda item the meeting. Okay, and, there's really not much else to say about it. If you could, if you guys go away in subcommittee and decide on something, please, get us something a little closer,
Yeah.
little further away from the actual meeting date, so we have time to digest it. This is
Fair
complicated.
point, yeah.
Okay,
I gotcha.
I know, we had our 5-year-old granddaughter all week,
Yeah.
so everybody's got a thing.
Yeah,
You forget what it is like to have a 5-year-old around. It's been a while. Okay, Brian, while you were gone, I wanted to ask permission of the group to take the ordinance that has to do with connecting driveways and bring it to P and Z and say, can we have this ordinance stricken from the building code?
We're gonna do what, pump that to P and Z?
Yeah, not punt it. We have to have, the way it's supposed to work is all of our recommendations are supposed to go through P and Z first before they go to city council.
Yeah, okay.
And so I want to take that recommendation to P and Z this coming Wednesday.
All right, I don't recall on my bitty little brain right now, what is the recommendation?
The recommendation is to just, and we have public support on this, is just to remove the ordinance.
And that would mean, is this for lots that
That's correct. And I'll write it up in such a way as it's 107 dot something, I forget what it is, but it's,
All right,
you know, it's one of those.
fine, good.
Okay,
Now,
Before we adjourn, is there a reason we can't make a recommendation on, how we measure building height? Like, send that on, because I think that one, seems to be consensus, and there seems to be some urgency about it. But it's
no,
back.
I have no reason not to do it.
Okay,
I think we need to get the graphics done well, because it's gonna take some explanation.
If,
yeah,
We've had to ask
if-
some explanation.
if
Right.
you would like, we can do something at the next P and Z meeting, but there's work to do.
you mean tomorrow?
No, the next it's Wednesday a week.
Oh, a week from,
It's a
okay,
week
okay,
Wednesday.
okay,
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
there's
Okay.
time.
yeah,
We could lay something out there.
okay.
I'd love for you to do it.
So come to the meeting.
Would you?
I won't be here. I don't
You won't be here
believe-
next Wednesday?
Wait, yes, I will. Sorry, my kids have 2 different spring breaks.
Okay.
And yes, one kid is leaving with, okay, yes, I will be here
You will, yeah.
next
You will find a very accommodating chairman there.
March 6th. Okay, I can do that.
That would be
That's-
great.
And, okay,
That would be
you
great.
can't do it, I have to do it?
Next Wednesday, Wednesday a week.
Which is
Um,
March what,
uh,
4th?
It is the 6th, March 6th. Would you like to come, Brian, as well? This is how I would like to see this committee work.
What time does that meeting start?
It starts at 6,
6, okay.
and you can be first.
Oh, that's nice, okay. Don't be late.
Well, you tell me. If you want to come at 6:15 or something, that's fine. You know,
No,
I'll stall them
no,
off
I
for
can do
15
it.
minutes.
I
But
can
yeah,
do it,
all right.
okay,
This is the model, I think.
okay,
I'd like the subcommittees to present their stuff to P and Z and take notes, and then we go to city council with it. Okay?
do we have to vote on that as a group here, that we will do that? We're gonna miss
Well,
any-
if we need to make, I think I heard us say we approve. That's the way that we're going to do.
Yeah,
Now, if we need to make do we need to make a motion as to that we're approving this particular means?
I
Of
think if
building
you're,
measurement.
like, making a recommendation to
Yeah.
the P and Z, that
Yeah.
probably, I don't know that there's any procedure
that's-
that's official,
Okay.
that that should be the right.
I think we're good.
okay.
We're good. All right. Brian?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. All in favor of adjourning? All right.
Thanks,
Okay.
everyone.
See you. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Thanks very much. Meeting adjourned at 6:55.